So welcome to another fabulous session that we have for the RFS meeting this year. This session is the potential of innovation, entrepreneurs, and partnerships. And we're really excited to have Rod Priestley, who is Vice Dean of Innovation at Princeton and Professor of Chemical and Biological Engineering. He brings incredible connections between academia and industry, from giants like Microsoft to startups from graduate students. He is also a working colleague with two of our RFS board members, Bonnie Bassler and Ginger Zakian. He is at the center of the university industry research collaborations at Princeton, including Princeton Innovation Center Biolabs, Google Artificial Intelligence Lab, a microbiology research partnership with Microsoft, and many more. He himself is co-inventor of 4 patent-pending technologies and has time for students in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering and for us. Thank you for joining us today, Rod. We look forward to your comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm delighted to be a part of this session here on Lab Leaders and Critical Connections as part of the Rosalind Franklin Society. Let me now share my slides. And if I can get a quick thumbs up that my slides can be seen, that would be great. Excellent. Thank you. Like I said, I'm delighted to be a part of the symposium and to be presenting with everyone on the potential of innovation, entrepreneurship, and partnerships with a potential focus on Princeton University and the work we've been doing over the past several months, really to grow the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem here at Princeton. I will start this presentation off by stating that, academic institutions are still the kind of undisputed center for knowledge creation, scholarship, and basic research. And much of the work that we do at academic institutions can have an enormous impact on society, including addressing many grand challenges, as well as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals outlined by the United Nations that's shown here on this slide. But in order for that impact to actually happen, academic institutions must create ecosystems that allows for the transformation of this basic and applied research off campus into the real world to actually have an impact. And that is the ecosystem that we are trying to build here at Princeton University. Another component to that is we also want this ecosystem to be inclusive, and that's the focus of my presentation today. How are we going about to build an ecosystem or an innovation ecosystem that's inclusive at Princeton University? And so when we think about academic institutions, they have this very unique opportunity to create this research, innovation, and entrepreneurship pipeline, all within one umbrella. And the unique component of this is that by connecting research, innovation, and entrepreneurship, you drive synergy amongst the 3 different components. And so when we think about bringing an entrepreneurial mindset to, say, research and innovation, we truly believe that that actually increases the rigor as well as the relevance of the research that we do at academic institutions. And most certainly when we bring this entrepreneurial mindset to the research and innovation that we do at academic institutions, it helps to accelerate translation of research to improve society. And so this is the pipeline that we're trying to build, this research, innovation, and entrepreneurship pipeline. But when we think about this pipeline, there's another component that's important. And so this convergence of research, innovation, and entrepreneurship kind of mirrors the convergence of different disciplines in academia. That's kind of a real hot topic now. It's convergence of the physical sciences, biological sciences, liberal arts, etc., to really work at the interface of different areas. And that's where we think really exciting ideas and innovations are going to come. But perhaps there's another component of this convergence or this pipeline that we really need to be thinking about. And that really is the power of diversity, or the human component to this pipeline. As we know, we learn most from those we have least in common with. And when we think about that, we think about it in the broadest context, whether or not it's ethnic, cultural, socioeconomic, professional, experiences, all these differences we think create fertile grounds for innovation. And so if you think about building up innovation and entrepreneurship here at Princeton, thinking about it in an inclusive manner is the way that we're going to move forward. In addition, when we think about diversity, academic research has certainly shown the benefits of diverse teams. Here shown in this plot here, I think illustrates this point very nicely in terms of how diverse teams typically drive greater innovation, leads to greater creativity. They also do things in terms of challenging biases and negative stereotypes. Now, while diverse teams may start off slower, as shown here on this plot, at the end, you see that they outperform. And academic institutions have very long lifetimes. And so we're thinking about the end or the far tail of things when we think about the innovation ecosystem that we're trying to build here. It's not about the now, it's about where we're trying to go in the future and make sure that we get there in the right manner. And so when we look at, again, this pipeline or this convergence of these different areas, the component that we think that's missing here is really the inclusion component. And that's what's really going to lead to unbound possibilities for us. And that's what's really excited me about Princeton Innovation and attracted me to the position to become the first Vice Dean for Innovation, that we really have an opportunity to grow the innovation ecosystem here in a unique manner. It's perhaps different from some of our other peer institutions. And so I'm often asked the question regarding Princeton, why innovation and entrepreneurship at Princeton? And I think this is an easy question to address because it's really an embodiment of the university's informal motto in the nation's service. But when we look at this in a little bit more detail, the granular level is really to have greater impact on society that's sparked by the fundamental and applied research that we do here on campus. We also look at this as a way to support the community, faculty, students, as well as alumni who have ambitions in innovation and entrepreneurship. And we're not here in a vacuum. And so we think about the ways in which we can engage with the external community. Innovation is not done in a vacuum. And so we have to think about how we network with those within the local and regional ecosystem. And then most certainly, we think that innovation and entrepreneurship uplifts the university's teaching and research mission. The second question that I'm often asked regarding innovation and entrepreneurship at Princeton is why now? And I often address this answer by saying, well, there's never been a better time to have a positive impact on society to help build a better future. That's true. There's some other reasons why we're now pursuing this innovation initiative. For instance, there's an increase in the number of patents that are being submitted by Princeton researchers, whether or not they're faculty, graduate students, or postdocs. The number of startups that are being founded that are licensing Princeton technology is also increasing as a show the way in which we're translating technology off campus. The number of licensing agreements that we have with larger corporations is also increasing. It was mentioned in the introduction, a number of collaborations that we have, for instance, with Google or Microsoft, as well as others. There's an increase in the number of these types of collaborations at Princeton between faculty and external partners. And so this increased interest certainly caught the attention from the upper administration, in which I think there's tremendous support for innovation and entrepreneurship here on campus. But rightfully so, one can see that this was essentially a bottom-up endeavor in which we responded to. I think every institution has to think about what is unique for them. And at Princeton, when we think about what's going to be unique for us as we grow innovation and entrepreneurship, for me, I think it's this world-class merger between science and engineering, as well as the liberal arts and the social sciences. By having this unique combination in which all students in science and engineering take courses in the liberal arts and the social sciences, vice versa, I think as we build out innovation and entrepreneurship here, we're going to do it in a manner where we really can put the human experience first and put it at the foundation of Princeton innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is another way in which one can think about inclusive innovation. Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, said it best recently in a panel at Princeton that the future of science and engineering as well as innovation will never be solely decided by those who major in those disciplines at academic institutions. And I think Princeton is one of those academic institutions that nicely merges science and engineering with other disciplines. Another component of this is Google recently did a study to identify what were the most significant traits, the most innovative employees at Google. And this is from a tech firm. And what they found out is that the traits that the most innovative employees had were not their technical skills. Those were further down the list, say number 7, number 8. The skills that rose to the top were like being a good listener, being a good mentor, having an understanding of the environment in which one lives in, etc. And these are the traits that we think all Princetonians get with regards to their education, whether or not they major in science and engineering or the liberal arts and social sciences. And so again, we think this merger here of these disciplines is what's really going to drive uniqueness for the university. And so in that regard, when we think about our mission here and what we're trying to do, is to encourage, facilitate, and promote innovation, entrepreneurship, and partnerships that will enhance the quality and impact of research and teaching here at Princeton, as well as enhance and support humanity for a well-integrated and nurtured innovation ecosystem that serves to improve the quality of life for all. Or in a nutshell, we want to participate in building a better future. And moving beyond that, we strongly believe that by identifying our core values, we become a destination for excellence. And our core values are the 6 listed here. We want to be collaborative. We want to build bridges. We want to build strengths amongst each other. We want to think about our community, make sure that we put our commitment to our community first, whether or not it's the researchers, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the external community, etc. And most certainly, we want to be inclusive. We recognize that innovation is a societal process and it requires participation of everyone in society. As we build Princeton Innovation Entrepreneurship, we want to make sure that it's inclusive of all. We want to evolve, so we want to be entrepreneurial. We want to be bold. We also want to be open. We want to make sure that the university is open to external partnerships, whether or not it's with industry, government, foundations, etc. And so by defining what our vision, mission, and kind of core values are, this allows us to build a rich ecosystem to support innovation at Princeton and do so in a manner where we can build off the strengths of the various organizations and entities on campus that are engaged in innovation and entrepreneurship. I like to say that no one entity owns, the innovation ecosystem. Every component is critical and important to building out our inclusive innovation ecosystem. And so working together is really the only way we're going to achieve our goal to build an inclusive innovation ecosystem. And so with that, what I'd like to do now is define some of the principles of innovation. We've been talking about innovation and entrepreneurship, but we have yet to actually define the term. And so we'll try to do that. But there's certainly some principles of innovation that's critical. Certainly one is inquiry and problem solving. Innovation starts when people convert problems to ideas. New ideas are born through questions, problems, and obstacles. In order for the innovation process to flourish, it needs to be in a climate that encourages and welcomes problems. And so when we think about this, we certainly want to build a climate at Princeton in which people can come together from various backgrounds and think about problems and challenges very broadly that can lead to ideas that can have an impact. Another principle of innovation is this idea of co-location that drives effective change. And so for me to sum this up, what this really means is that we want to build mechanisms in which there can be a lot of exchange between various groups and hopefully different groups, or build ways in which people can network. Because really during these networking events and people crossing paths with one another, someone brings their idea and another person brings their idea, and when they come together, is where we really have this aha moment of a new idea that leads to innovation that can really have impact. And so as Princeton thinks about growing innovation, we have to think about how do we do this not only on campus, but as well as our off-campus spaces, and how our off-campus spaces allows us to interact with other parties within the New Jersey innovation ecosystem per se. And then certainly our differences should be leveraged. And so when thinking about these principles of innovation, the one definition that I like to use, or say statement that I like to use to define innovation, that innovation is a process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems. And I got to stress the point here that when we say value, this is not necessarily economic value. We are talking about impact that say improves someone's life, or impact that improves the environment, etc. And so that's what we mean by value at Princeton when we think about innovation. Now, let's look at principles of inclusion and what that involves. Certainly fairness and respect. It has to be a foundational element underpinning the ideas of inclusion. People have to feel that they're being treated fairly and respected, that they're being treated in a manner similar to their colleagues, say in another department, across campus, etc. That has to be first and foremost. Secondly, people have to have a sense of value and belonging. People have to feel that their uniquenesses are known and are appreciated within this innovation ecosystem. And we want to make sure that as we build this out, this is a manner in which, as we form these networks, whether formal or informal, all people are part of them and they have this sense of belonging. And then the third component here is confidence and inspiration. Certainly all those that we want to engage in the innovation ecosystem that we're building here, we want them to have confidence that they can participate, that their voices will be heard, that they can ask questions, etc., and actually participate in the decision-making process and contribute as we continue to grow what we're trying to do here at Princeton. And so when we naturally think about bringing together inclusion and innovation, academic institutions are ripe for that, right? In my sense, as academic discovery and innovation demands the need to challenge prevailing knowledge and thought. And that's exactly what we are about here, these wider ranges of perspectives, the far more reaching the thinking. And we want to have far-reaching thinking that leads to new innovations, new ideas, etc. And so I can certainly attest that the faculty and leadership here strongly believes that diversity drives creativity and innovation in the production of research and knowledge. And we certainly want to harness the power of diversity in the things that we want to do. And so when I go back and look at the statement that I put up for innovation, and I think about how I would modify that statement for inclusive innovation, which is what we ultimately want to do and what we are in fact doing. I say inclusive innovation is the process of creating value by applying novel solutions to meaningful problems in which the value benefits all and the solutions include all. Now, with that statement, which is certainly debatable, one thing I can certainly do definitively is perhaps identify what the academic innovation process is in fact. And when I think about that, this is the diagram that I put together. Everything starts with an idea, and then there's research, and certainly that goes back and forth in terms of the loop. Hopefully there's then discovery. Perhaps that discovery is protected for intellectual property. There's always publication of the work, then perhaps proof of concept, tech transfer, and commercialization through various means, whether or not it's through a startup or licensing. Now, this is a general, I would say, kind of academic innovation process. It might slightly vary depending on the department or the institute that you are at. But one of the questions we always ask ourselves as we move forward, building the innovation ecosystem, making sure that things connect with our mission, values, and vision, is how do we make this process inclusive? If this is the academic innovation process, how do we make it inclusive? This is something we're trying to address. While we might not have the exact answer to it, and I'll provide some hints here later, I can certainly share with you how I think this innovation process would be influenced if it was, in fact, inclusive. Certainly the talent, the people who are generating the ideas would be different, it would be more diverse. Perhaps even the type of research that is done would be different. People from varied backgrounds have different interests. They read the literature and may come up with an entirely different way of approaching the problem. The interpretation of data, the connections to other fields might be varied based on people's different backgrounds. How one thinks about sharing the research, which conferences you go to, which journals you publish your work in, how you disseminate it to the broader population, it all might be different if this is an inclusive innovation process. And as we traverse this kind of diagram here, the application of how we think about the work, who we're targeting if we're going to build out a proof of concept, who the customer would be, what market we might decide to enter, would all be influenced if this was an inclusive process. And so clearly, in my view, there's a benefit, tremendous benefit, to making sure that the academic innovation process is an academic inclusive innovation process. And so some of the things we can tell ourselves when we look at this is that an innovation process is inclusive if it is created within a structure that is itself inclusive. So when we think about some of the entities within the academic innovation process at Princeton, such as corporate engagement, foundation relations, office technology licensing, Princeton Entrepreneurship Council, etc., we make sure that these are entities in which diversity and inclusion is critical to the success. We can also state that an innovation process is inclusive if it is created within a framework of knowledge and discourse that, again, is itself inclusive. So we've been fortunate enough here to announce several new programs and external partnerships to help drive innovation on our campus, whether or not it's Princeton TechStars program or the Princeton Wharton Business School program. And at every instance, when we engage with these partners, we're going to be training our faculty and students in innovation and entrepreneurship. We stress the importance to make sure that the framework of knowledge that's being presented is in fact inclusive. And then lastly, the innovation process is inclusive if the excluded groups are involved in the development of the innovation. And so here I highlight a few of the recent initiatives that we've supported here on campus related to innovation. Like for instance, Prospect Student Ventures is a student group that my office has supported to encourage students to pursue their ideas and innovation and entrepreneurship with small grants in the range from say 1K to 5K. And this was critical for us in terms of supporting diversity and entrepreneurship, because oftentimes when students go and pitch ideas around innovation and entrepreneurship, the first thing they would hear from say an angel investor or a venture firm is, well, have you exhausted all the funds from friends and families? But that is an inherent assumption that you actually have friends and family that you can actually go to receive small pots of money to pursue your ideas. And so through Prospect Student Ventures, we want to make sure that we are help to make sure that we level the playing field for students here who need access to the small pots of money to pursue their ideas that might grow and flourish. That's just one example. And so with that, now I'll kind of take a step back and present a little bit more on the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem that we are building here at Princeton. And in terms of thinking about what we focus on, education and experiences, support for new ventures, support for innovation, as well as industry collaborations. And within those four themes, I'm delighted that we have a large and ever-growing ecosystem here to address these problems. And I'm equally delighted that these groups come together and work together in a very collaborative manner to make sure that we provide the best education and experiences possible, the best climate to support innovation, unique ways to spur collaborations with industry, etc. And so what I'll do here is I'll walk through a few examples within each one of these various areas in terms of how we're trying to grow innovation and entrepreneurship. And so with regard to the education and experiences, here I just highlight a suite of different events and programs that we do here on campus to support innovation and entrepreneurship, whether or not they're events targeting undergraduate students, like creating the next generation of entrepreneurs, or innovation forum that celebrates new technology developed by faculty here at Princeton. I alluded to two programs that we're very excited about to help support Princeton innovation. One is with the Wharton Business School to provide executive training for faculty in entrepreneurship. And another is with Techstars, a large accelerator in New York City, to provide interactive training to postdocs and graduate students in entrepreneurship. In terms of thinking about how we support, innovation, here I'm just highlighting a few of the programs. I'll note the one in the center. Again, an innovation fund for collaborations between scientists on campus as well as artists on campus. Again, really trying to find ways in which we can encourage inclusive innovation by having groups from various different fields come together and work on topics of mutual interest, again, to expand innovation or essentially define a new field. We're fortunate to have a range of different support mechanisms for entrepreneurship, whether or not it's mentorship through our executives in residence program, our office hours, the various angel and VC groups that invest directly into new ventures that are coming out of the university. When thinking about how we are encouraging collaborations with industry, I'll just highlight this one example here, in which through the Office of the Dean for Research, one way we spark new collaborations with industry is through something called the Innovation Fund for Industry Collaborations. Or if a faculty member can find an industry partner willing to support research collaboration at $75K, the university will match that with $175K. So the total research agreement would be $250K, and the licensing agreement, et cetera, would be written in a manner, essentially, if the company had provided all of the support. So this is one way in which we nucleate new collaborations between faculty and researchers. And so in closing, what I'll do here is I'll highlight three entities on campus that are engaged in innovation and entrepreneurship at various levels. The Keller Center, which is primary focus towards undergraduate students, Graduate Futures, which is primary focus towards graduate students, and the Princeton Entrepreneurship Council, who thinks more broadly about researchers on campus, including faculty, as well as our alumni. And so the Keller Center, housed within the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, teaches the university's courses in innovation and entrepreneurship. And it's an extremely popular center to the tune that about a quarter of all Princeton students end up taking courses within the Keller Center, which provides a rigorous education in innovation and entrepreneurship, both curricular, where I'm showing some of the classes that are popular, as well as co-curricular programs, including the Princeton Startup Immersion Program, as well as the eLab Summer Accelerator Program. By the numbers, the Keller Center is truly impressive. Again, if you look at the number of students who take courses here on an annual basis, that's certainly about a quarter of the students. Over 300 co-curricular students experience different activities, 2 certificate programs, and the one note I'll highlight here is that 50 plus startups have been created through some of these programs, of which 50% of them have been founded by women or other underrepresented groups. Graduate Futures is a new program out of the graduate school that's focused on professional development, and the critical component of that is to serve as a catalyst for innovation and entrepreneurship through a holistic set of programming, whether or not it's bringing in external speakers who are engaged in innovation and entrepreneurship, or creating a whole suite of different programs, whether or not it's connecting graduate students with alumni so they can get advice, allowing graduate students to participate in innovation and entrepreneurship conferences, such as, say, the Tiger Entrepreneurship Conference, for instance, industry visits, or learning cohorts, which is something that's a favorite to me. And one of the things I'll highlight within this kind of learning cohort structure is that Graduate Futures have put on several learning cohorts related to innovation and entrepreneurship. Is extremely popular. Here I'm showing a photo of one that's going on now that's connected to inclusive leadership, where again, you have a cohort of about 30 graduate students that go through a training program about the importance and what is inclusive leadership. The final entity that I'll highlight is the Princeton Entrepreneurship Council, led by my colleague, Anne-Marie Ramon, in which the Entrepreneurship Council provides funding, mentorship, and holistic programming related to entrepreneurship. Whether or not it's promoting Princeton entrepreneurs through the Tiger Entrepreneurs magazine, holding events such as Tiger Talks in the city or on the road, or providing funding through the Alumni Entrepreneurship Fund. PEC is essentially the kind of focal point for promoting and supporting Princeton entrepreneurs. And they certainly make sure that they do this in an inclusive manner for the past several years. One of the programs that the Entrepreneurship Council has been putting on are Women Founder Startup Showcases and Underrepresented Minority Founder Startup Showcases that have, every time they've been put on, been a huge hit and a huge success. Building off these types of programs, and in order to build a culture that's supportive of innovation and entrepreneurship, we've now launched two very large conferences. The first is the Engage Conference, in which we had the very first one essentially a month ago, Princeton's first innovation and entrepreneurship conference that brought together more than 3,300 people to learn about innovation and entrepreneurship at Princeton. And we're excited about our spring event. It's going to be Empower 2021, which has a sole focus of figuring out how do we really move the needle with regards to advancing underrepresented groups and women and innovation and entrepreneurship. And we're very excited about the programming that we're putting together for Empower 2021. And so I would certainly tell people to stay tuned for that event. And so with that, I will close out and say thank you for listening. And certainly what we're trying to do here is create an inclusive academic and innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem to help build a better future by translating scholarship beyond campus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that this is a fabulous roadmap for any other deans who are listening. You've laid it all out for them, what they need to do at other universities around the world. So I hope you don't mind being copied. That is the highest form of flattery. So I think we'll be able to hopefully encourage some of that.
Thank you.
And students as well, to encourage their universities to do this. But I think it's exciting. And I really think that students will see a new side of how to apply what they often feel is the ivory tower of their undergraduate experience and even graduate school. So it's great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Delighted to be a part of this symposium.
Terrific.